In this episode, I'm going to reveal 6 habits that quite literally transformed my leadership. I missed out on years of implementing some of these habits, for which I'm kicking myself, but that doesn't have to be you. You can implement these habits immediately and start getting results right away. And I guarantee that some of these habits are probably going to surprise you. And I'm willing to bet that there are only a few of you who will actually implement the final habit. Maybe it's you, maybe not. We'll have to see. Before we dive in, I invite you to download my free leadership resource list. I have it linked below, or if you're listening via podcast, you can go to my website, zackwhite.com, and you can find it there. I only post new episodes once a week, so this resource list is my way of, sort of getting an additional playbook into your hands between our weekly time together. I genuinely want you to become the best leader you possibly can be, and this list of resources has served me in such a profound way, and I hope it serves you as well. All right, let's dive in. Ready? Here's habit number 1. And this is more of a stack of habits, I would say. And it's to cultivate your morning. Many years ago, I began to notice that all the leaders I studied and respected had a specific morning routine that they adhered to. And it was always a series of habits that they lived by religiously. And up until the time I started having kids, I didn't adhere to much of a morning routine at all. I would wake up whenever it felt right, as long as I got to work on time. I wouldn't have much of a structure to my morning as long as it involved coffee and walking out the door with clothes on. It's fine by me. And I wouldn't start my day with much of a plan. I'd sort of figure out a plan once I got into work. And this worked for me for a while, don't get me wrong, until it didn't. Once I had kids especially, everything started to change. My mornings slowly began to start with increasing chaos, and it started to impact my mood, and I was starting my day off tired and grumpy and annoyed and with no plans for my day. And my responsibilities kept rising and increasing, and every day I felt like I was waking up already behind the 8 ball. And so I started to think back to all the leaders that I respected, and I realized that I needed to make some changes. I needed to start the day differently. I needed to take control of my mornings, and that sort of began my journey to create this what I call morning stack. It's like this set of morning habits that I've had for years now, and it's taken shape certainly over the last 5 or 6 years, but the foundations have always been present. Let me tell you exactly what this looks like for me. So, my morning actually starts the night before when I lay out my gym clothes, and get this, when I actually go to bed early. Like that's the hardest battle right there, because my alarm goes off at 4:40. Which I know for a lot of you seems early, but the problem for you is not waking up early. The problem for you is probably going to bed too late. And that was the way I was for the longest time. Now at 4:40 and my alarm goes off, I quietly grab the clothes that I laid out the night before, and then I sneak out of the room so that I don't wake up my wife. Although some mornings I do because I'm clumsy. And then I go downstairs, I brush my teeth, get dressed for the gym, and then I have some buddies that I meet at the gym every day at 5. We kick butt most days, but sometimes we just show up and complain about wanting to get more sleep. Those are the days that usually matter the most. And then I head home around 6:30 a.m. And here's the best part. When I get home, my family's still asleep. The house is quiet. I get my coffee and I start an extended quiet time. Now, I'm a man of faith, so I start the time off with reading my Bible and praying. Then I use the rest of the time to think and plan my day out. It's maybe one of the only times of the day that I actually get to think, like actually be alone with my thoughts, formulate some things. Because once the kids come down, I'll pull out my calendar, I'll lay out my schedule, and then I'll decide on 2 or 3 of the most important tasks that I need to accomplish that day. Then around 7:30 a.m., I'll spend time connecting with my wife. And then by 8 a.m., you'll hear the sound of a herd of buffalo coming from upstairs down to my living room where my wife and I are sitting. Those are actually my children who know that until 8 a.m., they are imprisoned in their bedrooms. And then I turn into dad mode until I head to work at 9 a.m. And that's my morning stack. I live by it. It's the only way that I can actually own my day rather than my day owning me. And then there's the days where I take off. I have every Friday is my off day. And those are times where I try to sleep in actually. And sometimes that works out great. And sometimes I find that, even on my off day, I want to get up early and I want to get after it. So yeah, I would just encourage you to cultivate your ideal morning. a morning that really allows you to own the day rather than the day owning you. All right, habit number 2. This is a different one, but I got in the habit of saying 2 words that really changed the game for me to my team members. And those 2 words are, what else? This might be a weird one, but I swear by it. There are 2 things that I discovered about leadership, specifically when it comes to leading teams. First is that great leaders build teams that communicate openly, share ideas freely, foster an environment where team members feel safe, expressing their thoughts and feelings without judgment. That's the first thing, okay? But the second thing I learned is that team members almost never do this, at least by default. It's the leader's job to pull this out of a team, to encourage team members to feel safe, sharing and communicating. In fact, it can require a significant amount of energy to establish this kind of culture within your team. And one simple way I do this is by asking my team, what else? What else? In fact, apparently I do this so much that my team started lovingly teasing me about it. That's when I realized this was more or less a habit. And here's why I do this. First, it's an invitation to speak. That's big. You'd be surprised how many team members assume that meetings are just for the leader to speak to them. That's actually not what I think meetings are for at all. I view team meetings as a way for the team to speak to me. I need them to communicate to me what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're feeling. That's the information I need to actually lead well. So I ask questions and then I wait for them to speak. And I'm perfectly happy to sit in silence to let them think. And then guess what happens? One by one, they start to open up. And if there's a break in the discussion, I'll say, what else? And you know what? There's usually more. And it's usually the most important things that we needed to talk about that day. So again, I encourage you to try this out. See what happens. I think you'll be surprised. All right, habit number 3. Eat lunch with your team. Now, for some of you, this may be really foreign. Eat lunch with my team? My employees? Take it or leave it. But trust me when I say that this has had a significant positive effect on our team. We could easily use the time to get 20 or 30 more minutes of work done, but the value of sharing a meal together in the middle of our day has proven to be far more valuable in terms of use of time for the overall team. We don't usually talk shop. We literally just hit the pause button in our day, heat up our lunch, and gather to eat and connect. It's a time where, I can usually gauge how the team's doing that day. Do they look tired? Do they seem motivated? Are there problems or stresses they're dealing with? Is there something on a personal level that's bothering them? And I'm telling you now, this is one of the most strategic times of the day for our team. It's like halftime. We refuel, refocus, and re-strategize before the second half. I lead a team that works really hard and lives in a high-pressure environment where the stakes are high. Taking a lunch break and sharing it together is just a small yet meaningful way to foster a personal connection in the work that we do. Not to mention, lunch is normally a positive part of the day. Most people look forward to lunch. So every day, my team is associating lunch, which is something that they look forward to, that I look forward to, with spending time with their team members. After lunch, we walk and we'll get coffee together and then start the second stretch of our workday. It's such a wonderful habit. I highly recommend that you try it out. See what happens. Or at least find something similar that works for you in your context. All right, habit number 4. This is another thing that I ask or say a lot to my team. And this habit is related mainly to delegation. Here's what I say. What do you think? It's so wonderful. What do you think? One of the things I've realized in my leadership journey, so far at least, is that many of the team members you lead will often come to you asking for guidance on what they should do in a given situation or with a particular decision. And what I've learned is that these team members are usually fully capable of making the necessary decisions. They really are. In fact, more often than not, they are in a better position than we are as the leader to make the best decision. What they really want is affirmation or permission to do what they already know is the right thing to do. So here's what I've gotten in the habit of saying to my team members if they come knocking for my opinion. I'll say, what do you think? And 9 times out of 10, spot on. They are absolutely spot on. And all I have to do at that point is just say, yeah, I agree. Let's do it. And I can't even begin to tell you how crucial this has been in my leadership journey to empower my team members to make more decisions and take on more challenging ones as well. They're some of the most phenomenal leaders that I know. Decision making is such a fatiguing thing, right? Especially if you're in a leadership position, you feel like you're making decisions all day long. And I found that I really needed to mitigate how many decisions I make and prioritize the decisions that only I can make. And that's why developing the habit of saying, what do you think, is really so powerful. All right, moving on. Habit number 5, journaling. To be honest, I was one of those guys who had a negative view of journaling for a really long time. It seemed overly contemplative or moody to me. I got the whole like, Dear Diary kind of vibe, right? It just wasn't really into it or willing to try it. And I've just got to say, I was wrong. Straight up, I was wrong. I initially started journaling to deal with anxiety, and I quickly realized that it was a game changer for me. The benefits that I have experienced so far are absolutely incredible. It helps me think, it helps me process, it helps me strategize, it helps me plan my day, it helps me manage my stress, it helps me practice gratitude, it helps me spiritually and emotionally. Because I date my journal, it also helps me gain perspective on previous seasons of leadership. It's also nice to break free from the constraints of a device. You know, we're on devices all the time now, and there's just something about ink on paper that unlocks a different level of thought and creativity, at least for me. I'm really not sure I can explain it, but take it from a former skeptic, okay? Give it a try. It may just change your life, really. All right. We've come to the last habit. Now, you may think this habit is crazy. You may think this is impossible. I don't know, but here it is. Take a monthly retreat. Yes, I said monthly. Now, this is a habit that my father actually modeled for me. My father's a great leader. In the early days of his leadership, he would always take a monthly overnight trip to the mountains. And he'd leave on a Thursday afternoon and come back on a Friday morning. It was probably barely 24 hours, but he swore by its impact on his emotional, physical, and spiritual tanks as a leader in those early days. For years, I heard this leadership advice and honestly never acted on it. For one thing, I felt guilty leaving my wife with the kids while I went off to recharge and refocus. There was some mental barrier there that was like, I don't know if I can do that. But that changed about a year or so ago when both my wife and I realized that the demands of life and leadership were just too great for me to ignore this habit anymore. It's one that I always had in the back of my head as, maybe that's something I need to look into one day. In fact, my wife looked at me one day. I probably was looking and acting like a shell of myself. And she said, "You need to go to the mountains. I'm going to book it today." I didn't realize how deeply I needed to get away to recharge and refocus until that very first retreat. It was just one night, again, just over 24 hours, but wow. I came back a different man. I was a better husband, better father, better leader, better friend, you name it. And from then on, my wife and I were both convinced that this needed to be a monthly habit for me. It really did. Now, part of that's because I'm an introvert. I gain my emotional energy from being alone. My wife also has excellent life-giving practices, but she's not an introvert like me, so she wouldn't necessarily want to be alone for 24 hours. So suffice it to say, this may not be a habit that's right for you, but it definitely changed my life in leadership. And it may sound strange to say this, but it is definitely a discipline. I still feel guilty leaving the family sometimes, even though I know it's for my own health and my wife is 100% supportive. Sometimes I also don't feel like I have the margin to get away. I can easily convince myself that I have too much to do to be spending time doing this mountain recharge retreat thing. And then I'm quickly reminded when I take the retreat just how important and beneficial it is. I'm like, oh man, why don't I do this more? It's becoming increasingly important for my overall life and leadership. And it may seem impossible at first for you, But I highly encourage you to adopt this habit or some kind of monthly retreat. Maybe you go to the beach wherever you live, or maybe you go to a coffee shop and spend the entire day just exploring a town or a city or whatever it is for you. But I would highly encourage you to do something, particularly if you want to last as a leader without burning out. All right. There you have it. 6 habits transformed my life and leadership in so many ways. Let me know in the comments what habits you found transformative in your life, and if any of the habits I mentioned resonate with you. If you liked the episode, then you'll probably like this episode right here, where I talk about 3 productivity hacks that could 10x your leadership. It's a really fun conversation. You can hit this link, and I'll see you over there.